I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to episode 140 of Dark and Stormy Book Club. As you may or may not have noticed, over the past few months, we have dedicated an episode to giving you reviews on a different genre. This month's genre is true crime. I will start off the reviews with The Cold Vanish, Seeking the Missing in North America's Wildlands by Jon Billman. And I listened to this book on audio. It was narrated by Stephen Graybill. It came out on July 11th, put out by Hachette Book Group. On April 6th, 2017, a local Port Angeles, Washington woman named Stacy passes Jacob Gray as he rides his bike up the Soul Duck Hot Springs Road, about 2 miles upriver from the 101. As she comes back down the mountain, Stacy sees Jacob's rig laid down 6.3 miles upriver from the 101. His red bicycle pulling a trailer is found off the Soul Duck Road in Olympic National Park with 4 arrows stuck in the ground between the road and the bike and the trailer. The arrows appear to have been placed in a row deliberately. The park rangers perform a hasty search but find no rider. Even though the abandoned rig is odd, there is nothing to suggest a missing person. A search of the gear provides a list of phone numbers, and Jacob's family is contacted on April 7th. After a 2-day search, Jacob Randall Gray, 22 years old, 145 pounds, 5'11", brown hair, brown eyes, is presumed to have fallen into the Soul Duck River. On April 13th, Jacob's family is told that the search will be shifted to a limited continuous search, essentially saying that the park will not be dedicating any more resources to the search because they have found no viable clues. The search is officially shifted to the Clallam County Sheriff's Department outside the park. Thus begins the tale of the Gray family's search for Jacob. At first, there is an all-out effort by many family members, friends, volunteers, and locals. Most researchers had to return home. They have jobs, bills to pay, and other family obligations. Other family members come in to spell them. This is the way it goes. Randy Gray, Jacob's father, however, never gave up. Randy owned his own house building company, but shuttered the business and sold the family house to continue the search for Jacob full-time. His optimism and dedication were boundless. Randy, an avid surfer, dove the Soul Duck River again and again, wandered the Port Angeles area speaking to drug addicts, traveled to Canada, basically followed any lead or possibility in searching for his son. Jon Billman details the search for Jacob Gray and weaves vignettes of other missing persons throughout the telling. Jack Kroll was a backpacker who went missing the same week as Jacob on the other side of Olympic National Park, whose family's experience with law enforcement in Mason County was much less frustrating than Jacob's with park rangers. In July 1997, Amy Roe Bechtel, an Olympic hopeful runner, disappeared from Shoshone National Forest, and her husband is still suspected of having a hand in her disappearance. Reports of serial killer Dale Wayne Eaton having been in the area have not proved fruitful. The story of Christopher McCandless was made famous by John Krakauer's Into the Wild. McCandless voluntarily hiked into Alaska's wilderness in August 1992, sets up his campsite in an old abandoned bus, then starves to death due to his complete inexperience in the wild. These and many other examples point to the numerous reasons people go missing in the wild. There are the expected reasons: swept down river, caught in an avalanche, killed by wild animal, hypothermia, or suicide. Some are found in strange circumstances, being found in an unlikely distance from the last place seen. missing articles of clothing that's not explained by hypothermia. Some bodies are found in areas previously searched, sometimes right along a trail. These lead to the conspiracy theories, like Bigfoot, UFOs, or portals to other dimensions. Many are found in jails, hospitals, morgues, or mental asylums. Jon Billman's exhaustively researched book on the missing in North America's wildlands explores many and varied inadequacies in searching for them. Jon guesstimates that 1,600 people missing in the wild is not a stretch and is probably wildly conservative. Neither the U.S. nor Canada keep track of numbers on public lands. The hierarchy of search and rescue in the U.S. is fragmented and bureaucratic. The Department of the Interior oversees national parks, and rangers are in charge of search and rescue. The Department of Agriculture oversees the U.S. Forest Service, and county sheriffs head up search and rescue in national forest. On reservations, where there is an epidemic of missing people, especially women, the Bureau of Indian Affairs is in charge. Volunteer search organizations need to be invited into any search by the appropriate jurisdiction, otherwise they are blackballed if not authorized. The Department of Interior knows how many wolves and grizzly bears roam its wilds, but has a hard time keeping track of visitors who disappear. Lack of funding and resources due to budget cuts is a tremendous problem. In Olympic National Park, 2/3 of their rangers have been transferred out and not replaced. People aren't missing until they're reported missing. Even then, if they are over 18 years old, it is not a crime nor an emergency. Stephen Graybill narrates this audio and weaves a haunting, mesmerizing tale that draws the listener in and makes one feel personally invested in Randy Gray's heartbreaking search for his son. This was an excellent book that reads like a thriller. The capsules of missing persons sprinkled throughout have the feel of red herrings and keep the reader intrigued. Nonetheless, this is unfortunately nonfiction, and the facts in the less than perfect search and rescue operations in the wild are disheartening and frustrating and might give one pause before venturing out on an afternoon hike in the woods. I'll end with this quote from the book. If you're going to murder someone, do it in Olympic National Park because no one is going to find you. It's harder than a needle in a haystack.
You know, I have to say, I've always been fascinated by people that are called to the wild to go on these quests to commune with nature, shall we say. I just do not have that calling to go out into the woods by myself. Chris McCandless's story, actually, Into the Wild, is one of my favorite books. I was fascinated by his story that he, even though he had never done it before, wanted to go to Alaska and live off the land. When some of these people come up missing, it's sad, but they know that risk when they enter into that world.
Well, and that's part of it. There are people like this Chris McCandless, and Jacob Gray was kind of compared to him. He was very experienced. He and his father were very experienced surfers. He did tons of research. He knew what he was doing, and his gear, they said, it had everything in it that you wanted to find in an REI store. This kid was prepared. That he's not the only one. The author gives you examples of many other people who were very well versed in going out and hiking, people whose job it was to go out in the woods and, say, count animals or what have you. And they go missing, and a lot of them are found dead, but a lot of them are just
there's
missing.
a lot, the great unknown, too, as far as animals. There's only so much you can be prepared for. Avalanches.
Some of these people who are very familiar with their trail, they got lost. They got turned around for whatever reason and could not find their way out. I felt drawn to this story because I'm very enamored with hiking and woods and such, and so that was my first
I am
intrigue.
too, but not by myself. I like to share the journey.
Well, as a woman, I wouldn't venture into a prolonged walk in the woods anyway. But about Jon Billman, he's a former wildland firefighter and high school teacher. He holds an MFA in fiction from Eastern Washington University. He's the author of the story collection, When We Were Wolves. Billman is a regular contributor to Outside magazine, and his fiction and nonfiction have appeared in Esquire, the Paris Review, and Zoetrope, All Story. He teaches fiction and journalism at North Michigan University in the Upper Peninsula. where he lives with his family in a log cabin along the Chocolate River. He doesn't seem to have a website, but he can be found at www.nmu.edu/English/Jon, Jon-Billman. And his Twitter handle is at Jon Billman.
Well, thank you, Kathy. That was very interesting.
There was so much to unpack in that story, so I really whittled it down for you.
The book I have, If You Tell, The True Story of Murder, Family Secrets, and the Unbreakable Bond of Sisterhood. It's written by Greg Olson. After more than a decade, when sisters Nikki, Sammy, and Tori Nonick hear the word mom, it claws like an eagle's talons. It triggers memories that have been their secret since childhood until now. For years, behind closed doors of their farmhouse in Raymond, Washington, their sadistic mother, Shelley, subjected her girls to unimaginable abuse, degradation, torture, and psychic terrors. Through it all, Nikki, Sammy, and Tori developed a defiant bond that made them far less vulnerable than Shelley imagined. Even as others were drawn into their mother's dark and perverse web, the sisters found the strength and courage to escape an escalating nightmare that culminated in multiple murders. This book is harrowing and heart-wrenching. It's a survivor's story of absolute, utter evil, and the freedom and justice that Nikki, Sammy, and Tori risk their lives to fight for. Sisters forever, victims no more. They found a light in the darkness that made them the resilient women that they are. How any person could get away with what this woman did. She had 3 girls and a nephew. Her greatest thing was to wake the girls up in the middle of the night. It was always one at a time. Take them outdoors in the freezing cold, have her husband hose them down, and they had to stand there and take it.
It almost reminds me of that family.
Their only thing was they locked them up. And
No, they made them go out and dig in the dirt.
I remember hearing about this very recently.
It's a horrible, horrible story. And the mother, even after she was arrested for 3 murders...
Who did she murder?
She murdered her nephew, who lived with them. She took in a friend who was a beautician. She offered her a home. As soon as the woman moved into her house, she cut her off from society, told everybody she ran away. She made her clean the house in the nude. I mean, this woman was a sadist. She is a sadist. Her husband, to this day, swears she did nothing wrong. She was a beautiful woman when she was younger. I just can't get over the evil that this woman... I mean, you complained about me when you were younger.
Meanest mother ever!
That's all I ever heard. All I can say is read this book and you'd think I was Mary Poppins. It was very well written.
She made me clean my room.
And I made her do the dishes. We didn't have a dishwasher back. I was cruel.
She was clothed, though.
Most of the time. How anybody, a mother, could be so cruel to her own children and to anybody else who lived in their house. And how her husband just would not do anything to...
Well, he's just as guilty, if you ask me.
Yeah, oh, definitely. He is just as guilty. But I didn't know. Even though when the nephew got killed and they wrapped him up
How old was the nephew?
I believe he was 17, something like that. He had been living with them, and the girls didn't even know. He just got skinnier and skinnier because...
Can I ask, why was the nephew living with them?
He had a problem running away.
Oh.
I thought he became an orphan somehow.
Of the goodness in her heart. And she was a nurse's assistant. She went out...
I find that happens a lot with them.
And she took in an elderly man, signed all his life insurance over to herself, And then this